Hey guys, this is Mel, and I'm back to talk about Shadowhunters. 2 episodes. Episode 317, titled Heavenly Fire, which premiered April 8th, 2019, as well as episode 318, titled The Beast Within, which premiered April 15th, 2019, both on Freeform. I'm recording on the 16th because I just finished watching 318 on Netflix. So huge spoiler alert, if you haven't seen the 2 episodes already, please go do so first, and then come back and see what I have to say about the episode. My other video reminders are up on screen, so take a moment to remind yourselves of those. I'm going to try to do this in 20 minutes. Hopefully I can do 10 for each episode, but let's find out. So let's start the clock and let's begin with what happened in this episode. So huge episode reminders. For 317, I wrote that it was pretty much Project Heavenly Fire being exposed in this episode. And 318, I'm going to remember it as it being the Halloween episode. So there is that. For timeline-wise, for 317, I believe it's a few days since the events of 316, just because Magnus is on the mend when he was on the verge of death in 316. And then we also have Jonathan undergoing a number of interrogations by Underhill with nothing to show for it after or once the episode started. So that's why I think it's been a few days. But for 318, it's 15 hours since the end of 317, as well as the fact that it's October 31st as well. So there's that. So most shocking moment of the episodes, I think I'd have to say for 317, it has to be Raphael being human again. I mean, the shock in itself that Project Heavenly Fire was meant to revert Downworlders back into being humans or into humans or mundanes, that was a surprise there. But I just never thought that, if anything, I feared for Raphael's life. I just didn't expect I'd ever see him being human again. So that was the shock there. For 318, the shock came when Clary picked Jonathan over Jace in that whole white world place thing, when it had Jonathan being black wings and Jace being white wings. So there is that. It would have been pretty cool if they had showed Clary with the white wings and yet with the black slowly consuming the white of her wing. Just kind of show the darkness festering inside of her, and then the moment she picked Jonathan, have the black part of the wings completely consume the white parts. So that would have been cool, but it was a shock to see. I wasn't expecting her to pick Jonathan. Storyline wise, I knew that they'd have to go down that route just to show that how far the twinning rune did to change her. But I didn't think Jace would be there too. So, or a figment of him to be there. So there's that. So let's move on to first scenes of the episode. For 317, we do have Alec making plans with Magnus to have a special dinner that night. So 317 takes place over a day. And then we also see Magnus looking into new places for them to live in. So there's that, which is very different for how 318 ends, but I'm getting ahead of myself. But 318 begins with Simon playing video games at his place and being surprised by his sister Becky visiting for Halloween. So there's that. And that was a cute little sentiment there too, because, yeah. But let's move on to storyline breakdowns. For 317, I picked up on 3 different ones according to my notes. First one being Project Heavenly Fire, which I will talk about in a moment. Number 2 being Jonathan's backstory, which I'll talk about in a moment as well too. And then number 3 being Magnus or Malik, I'll call it Malik proposal, where Alec had told Jace about his plans to propose to Magnus, but they get sidetracked when Magnus shows up being completely drunk and miserable. So that's but throughout the episode, we do see Alec trying to make plans to have the night go perfectly, which it doesn't. But anyways, there's that. So for episode 318, though, for the storyline breakdowns, I picked up on 4 different ones. The first one being Twinning Rune Troubles, which I'll talk about in a moment as well. Second one being the Drevik Demon's Attack, which I'll talk about again in a moment. And then the third one is Alec's Decision, which deals with him making a deal with Asmodeus so that he could restore Magnus's powers, but in return he has to break up with Magnus, which he ultimately decides to do. He breaks things off with Magnus at the end. So there's that. And the fourth storyline is Halloween celebrations at the Hunter's Moon. Here we get to see Simon teaching Becky a little bit more about the Shadow World. And then we also see Maya and Jordan not only returning, but talking about the future of the pack, her being an alpha, and then her offering him the position of being the beta to her alpha, kind of being her second command, and him ultimately accepting it, from what I understand, after he realizes that she truly does forgive him for what he did to her in regards to turning and abandoning her. So there's that. So let's move on to the other two storyline topics that kind of transcended over episodes. And it pretty much has to deal with Michael and Lucifer. So we have the search for the Morningstar sword, which coincides with the Lucifer aspect of the mythology. And then we have the storyline dealing with Heavenly Fire, which is connected to Michael's sword, Glorious. And that's where a majority of the storylines tend to fall underneath. So let's talk about the Morning Sword part of it first. So for 317, this one coincides with the Jonathan backstory storyline of the episode. So this is where we find out during interrogation with Jonathan about the sword. He reveals his own backstory about Lilith, telling him about the sword as well as of Clary's existence. We also find out that he wants a sword, or he was told that the sword would be the only thing that would free him from Eden, but only a Morgenstern could use the sword. And at that time, he only knew of his father and himself to be possible, but since he was in Eden, he couldn't use the sword. So after finding out that he had a sister in Clary, I think that shifted, but now that he's out of Eden, I don't know if he still needs the sword to maybe keep him out of Eden. But there's that. We also find out that Clary in her childhood always had these recurring nightmares of Jonathan in Eden, thinking that it was a twisted fairy tale where he was a prince being locked in a fiery tower by the evil queen, Lilith. And the princess, Clary, is always trying to save the prince in the tower, but she fails. So it's on a very deeper level, she was always connected to that, always thinking it was a twisted dream, but then to come to find out that it was actually all happening to him. So that has her a little bit of guilt there as well. So with 318, in regards to the Morningstar sword, we get confirmation once again that the Seelie Queen does have the sword, and she wants to keep it a secret among her Seelie court. And because of this, since Jonathan knows, and she knows that he hasn't told anybody, she wants him killed. So in order to get to Jonathan in the Institute, the Seelie Queen orchestrated the whole Drevik demon attack on the city as a distraction for the Shadowhunters, so that her Seelie, Lanani, it's the Seelie that was shifting to be Clary for Jonathan, that Seelie. So she assigns her to go kill Jonathan in the Institute so that he doesn't share the fact that the Seelie Queen has a sword, but instead Clary kills the Seelie after she has gone over to the dark side, and she escapes with Jonathan. So there's that. So with Heavenly Fire, though, episode 317 dealt heavily with Project Heavenly Fire. We find out the fact that what it was, first off. So with this storyline, we see Simon going undercover as Zeke Russo, a vampire who killed Mundane, which is why he was arrested and taken to the guard, but instead he got reassigned to Project Heavenly Fire. During this, we get Izzy recruiting Eileen to help put the pieces together and she uses her mother's clearance as consul. And they find out that Project Heavenly Fire has the ulterior motive of curing the Downworlders with Heavenly Fire by putting it in the water supply and having Downworlders drink it and turn back into Mundanes. And Heavenly Fire serum has shards of the glorious sword in it or infused in it, as the actual pieces were destroyed during the creation of the serum. So the whole time they're not only trying to save Simon, but they're trying to stop the non-consenting transformation of these Downworlders. Raphael ends up being one that is grateful for the transformation because he's glad to be a human again, but then you have Downworlders like Iris, who had her magic stripped away from her without her consent. We also meet a half Seelie, half Shadowhunter, who is against taking the Downworlder identity away from someone, so this is how she turns against it. We do also find out that it's Victor Aldertree that is behind this project, so there's that. But because of the events of what happened in 317, Simon does get a handful of the Heavenly Fire serum to use and give to Izzy. And in 317, Izzy did some tests and found out that if she injects Jonathan with it, that will destroy his demon blood inside of him, as well as the demonic connection between him and Clary. So that's what they do. Izzy injects the Heavenly Fire serum into Jonathan's twinning room, And then through great pains from Jonathan and in connection to Clary, it suddenly stops and doesn't work. I honestly think it has something to do with his eyes turning black in the last moments of it. Maybe that's what overpowered it. But anyways, because of this, Izzy has the idea of trying to draw out the glorious particles from the serum and merging them all together to create a more potent version of the serum, but it's going to take hours to do so. However, because Clary succumbs to the darkness during the Drevik attack, she saves Jonathan from the Seelie and escapes with him. So there isn't a chance for Heavenly Fire to be used on him again. We also see Clary's eyes turning black as well, too, when she gains consciousness once again. So there's that. So moving on to the last scenes of the episode, for 317, it was Magnus's breakdown in Alec's arms during their special dinner. I do appreciate this scene because it fully emphasized what Magnus is going through. It's not simply brushing off the fact that he's adjusting to this, it's under the rug, it's no big deal. But for this, it truly is a loss of identity for him. And seeing him struggle and have it be acknowledged is something I appreciate seeing. And then the last scene for 318 was the fact that we see Asmodeus escaping from Edom through his connection to Vera, the warlock that Alec had used to contact Asmodeus in the first place. So he's out walking about on Earth. So there's that. So let's move on to tidbits very quickly. Based off of 317, I got a bunch of tidbits listed here. First one being that Victor Aldertree apologized to Izzy for enabling her yin-fen addiction. That was long overdue, but there's that. And this is long before they found out that he was behind Project Heavenly Fire and what its purpose was. So there's that. We found out that the Clave has its own separate dining hall, which is exclusive for Clave employees. So that was impressive. We also see Simon being a little weak when he wakes up in his first appearance of the episode. And I'm wondering if it's because he was just sleepy from a long night, or if it's because he's still recovering from drinking Jonathan's demon blood in the previous episode. And maybe that's having some effect on him or something. I don't know. But we do find out later in the episode that he still has his daylighter qualities, so at least we know the demon blood didn't revert what the pure angel blood had given him. So there's that. Another is we do find out about the sealing rings that establish a telepathic connection for communication purposes between the two people who wear them. Once put on, it will glamour itself to be invisible, and it'll only show itself when the wearer is sleeping or unconscious. So they have to be on guard about that. But that was a pretty cool invention. I feel like it's something that all Shadowhunters should have within the field, just so that they're in communication with each other, because they definitely don't have communications like us humans would have, the earwigs and stuff, right? So that was a fun little added tool to have there. And then also we see Magnus finding his first gray hair. It might not mean much, but since he's now mortal, I'm left wondering if we're going to be dealing with a Vampire Diaries issue with, like we did with season 5 with Catherine. When she took the cure and she turned human again, she found herself rapidly aging the moment that cure was out of her system to catch up with the amount of years she actually was. So I'm wondering if, since they showed Magnus's gray hair all of a sudden, if that's going to be something that Magnus is going to find himself dealing with. So that's a concern there. But let's move on to 318, the tidbits for that. So we have Magnus spending the day with Maris at the bookshop, Ouroboros bookshop, and getting some new perspective about adjusting to life as a mundane. We do have the Seelie Queen being aware that killing Jonathan would kill Clary, and she deems it as a pity. So there's that. We also see Luke returning and being there for Clary during their first attempt with destroying the twinning room. And then we also see Becky seeing Simon's crush on Izzy and encouraging him to go forth, or at least planting it in his head that it's a possibility. And then we also see Simon almost kissing Isabel before the alarms go off about the breach in the Institute. So there's that. So let's move on to characters very quickly. So 317, we do see the return of Victor Aldertree and him being behind Project Heavenly Fire. He was arrested at the very end, so there's that. We do meet Helen Blackthorne, and she's the hybrid hunter. So she has a Shadowhunter dad, and she is a Seelie, and she has her mom being a Seelie. So she still has runes like the Shadowhunter, but she still has the pointed ears like a Seelie. But she's able to tell a lie, I think. I don't know, because she claimed, like, when Simon brought it up, when he found out that she was a Seelie, and he questioned her, and she's like, I don't know what you're talking about. And he said, like, oh, apparently Seelies can lie. I don't know if that is true, or if she truly didn't know. So to her, that statement would be true before she finds out what was actually going on. So I don't know, but we definitely see her turning around things. I hope we do see her again in the last episodes of the show. But she was very interesting. Just to see that combination being possible was cool. Also, we see the return of Raphael. We do see him turn back into a human with very impressive fighting skills. I had hoped when he originally got arrested that we would see him again, because I had a feeling he would be part of the whole guard mistreatment storyline going on, which ended up being Project Heavenly Fire. I just never expected that I would see him as a human, if not ever. So that was a huge surprise there. We do see the return of Iris Rouse. She got turned into a human with Project Heavenly Fire, and she was killed as a distraction when they were trying to overthrow the project. So there's that. So she's human, but she's not going to be any issues with Matsy anymore as well. And also, we do see the return of Aileen Penhollow as she helps Izzy figure out what the true purpose of Project Heavenly Fire is. And she's behind the whole... she's the leading authority figure during the rest. So there's that. With characters for 318, though, we do get the name of that Seelie shifter that Jonathan had in Lilith's apartment. Her name was Leana or something, and she ends up being killed by Clary after be given a mission by the Seelie Queen to kill Jonathan. I really don't like the fact that I get her name the episode that she's killed. It's like, what's the point of naming her then? It's like, I didn't need to know her name. So we got one before she died, so there's that. But we also see the return of Becky Lewis, Simon's sister. We do find out that she now lives in Florida. I originally thought it was because of school, but no, her and her mom, or their mom, Elaine, moved to Florida after they quote-unquote lost Simon. So that's something there. We do find out that Becky has always had the Halloween tradition to spend it with Simon and Clary, and that's kind of why she flew up from Florida for Halloween, which was a Wednesday, might I add, to spend it with them. This Halloween is very different for them, but she does learn a little bit more about the Shadow World side of Simon's life. So there's that. Also, with Jordan Kyle now, we do find out that he's never been part of a pack before. I guess he doesn't consider the Praetor Lupus as a pack, but he's now considering, because of Maya's offer, for him to become her beta. So there's that. Moving on to runes very quickly. 317, I only caught mention of the tracking rune. It was supposed to work for Isabel to locate Simon, but once he was brought to wherever he was for transfer, that kind of stopped. So that was like useless for her. So there's that. In 318 we see the rune of Clary's sunlight rune, her creation, being used against a demon. And then we also see them use the sight rune, I believe. It's the one that allowed them to see the demon ichor on the blood without anyone else seeing it. So it's that special sight thing. I think it's called sight, but I'd have to look it up, but there's that. So let's move on to top favorite moments. I'm looking now, it's less than 2 minutes. I so didn't do it. I thought I was doing good. But anyways, 317, favorite moments has to be, first, Jonathan's backstory about his time in Edom, as well as its connection to Clary's childhood nightmare. I just appreciate, it definitely has me conflicted about how I'm supposed to be seeing Jonathan, because with the backstory, you can easily see that he's a victim. But then at the same time, he's done all these awful things because of the events that happened to him. So it's just like, and then also Clary's guilt with it. It just has me, I appreciate more of the story that kind of further complicates the character, so which has me wondering how exactly am I supposed to feel about Jonathan then. So there's that. Another favorite was the fact that we got to figure out what exactly Project Heavenly Fire was. I love the fight scenes that came during that part of the episode, especially with Simon being more into the fight, and then Raphael as a human holding up his own as well was pretty impressive. It was just great to see the inner workings of that project being exposed. So that was a favorite there. Another favorite in connection to that project was Isabel kicking Victor Aldrich's butt while she was all dressed up and looking fancy, And she did all that. She kicked his butt and everything, and she still looked as if there was not a hair out of place. That was like so impressive. It just makes her even more of a badass than ever. So there's that. And another favorite that I had for the episode was Jace's excitement over Alex's plans to propose for Magnus. You could just see the immediate joy on his face. And I'm left wondering if that's his, and then he's also feeling the excitement from Alec that he's getting from it, and then vice versa. I'm wondering if Alec is truly feeling like Jace's excitement for him because of their parasite bond. But it's just really cute to have them have that one quiet moment where they can just share in happy news or happy plans with each other. So that was pretty cool there. There's the timer. Wow. Whew. Sorry about that. But let's talk about 318 for my favorites. First one being Alec asking Jace for advice about if, he asked pretty much if, would you do anything to separate Clary from the 20 rune if it meant you could never see her again? Because he wanted to get perspective on what he should do with Asmodeus' deal. Jace says no, he'd still want to be in Clary's life, so that kind of means the opposite for Jace, I'm guessing, but that's kind of what came from it. So there's that, sorry. Another favorite was the bonding between Maris and Magnus. Maris and Magnus. Whew. The bonding between them, it was just, it was great to see them on equal footing ground. It was great to see the bonding as well as the parallels between the two of them, because yes, Magnus is going through something that Maris has dealt with recently, and she's able to be there for him and give him some perspective on it. So I just appreciate that, and I'm glad they showed that part, because that's very important as well. Another favorite as well was Becky's encouragement towards Simon going after Izzy and trying to make things work, because he kept saying, like, no, we're friends, she'll never see me like that. And then Becky, I love that she tossed it in Simon's face about how, like, that never stopped him before, hinting about Clary and stuff. So I like that she gave him that nudge to kind of see things a little differently or see the possibilities and stuff. So there's that. And another tiny favorite I did have was Alec, the way that Alec went about to talk to Asmodeus. I do appreciate that he went through a warlock to have them kind of be like the vessel, the speaking vessel for Asmodeus, and just to not have him be summoned and risk him escaping. Granted, that does backfire later on, because he does manage to use that connection to escape. But I did appreciate Alec explaining, like, I wasn't going to summon you and risk you coming free. This was the only other option for me to contact you. So I do appreciate at least Alec using his brain for that. Granted, he could have never known that Asmodeus would have the power to still maintain that connection and use it to his advantage. So I'll let that slide. But let's move on to top peeves very quickly. I don't have any for 317 that I have written, so I'll leave it at that. But for 318, big peeve, everyone's going to agree with the fact that Alec broke up with Magnus, for sure. Did not want that to happen, especially at the place that Magnus is in right now. But another peeve was the fact that Clary went dark side. Yes, I understand why she did it. I understand that's kind of where the story needs to go in order for it to be a huge triumph for her to return from that darkness. But it just still sucks to see it. So there's that. So let's move on quickly to random questions. I did have a lot for 317, but can you really blame me? I had like a week to stew in that. So first one being, can they use the Heavenly Fire Serum on Jonathan to eliminate his demon-blooded side? Would that change him enough for him not to be a threat? I mean, they kind of did talk about in 318 how they were hoping, like, killing or extinguishing the demon blood in him would destroy the demonic connection within Clary. But they didn't really talk about whether or not that would actually change Jonathan down to his core. So I guess we'll have to wait and see about that. Another question is, will Raphael start his new life elsewhere and cut ties with the Shadow World? Or could he work for Mayor Slightwood at the Ouroboros bookshop? Because I feel like that would be awesome, just having Maris, Raphael, and Magnus working at that bookshop together as former members of the Shadow World. I thought that'd be pretty cool, despite the depressing terms that came about it. But I can also stand Raphael wanting to go away and start something new in his brand new life. But, like, I don't want him to cut all ties with, like, the characters, right? So I'm just wondering. Another question. If Luke is given the Heavenly Fire Serum, could he be a Shadowhunter again? Or would that strip him of the possibility of being a Shadowhunter? I don't know. Because like he was a Shadowhunter first, and then he got turned into a werewolf. So if he took the Heavenly Fire to get rid of the part that became a werewolf, then could he be a Shadowhunter again? That's one question. And the last question: do you think Downworlders that were once human are more likely to consider taking the Heavenly Fire cure than the Warlocks who were never human to begin with? So there's that. So for 318, the questions here are: 1, will Asmodeus still uphold his deal with Alec now that he's walking free on Earth? 2, is Clary possessed or has she truly gone dark side? And 3, how long has it truly been since the series started, if it's only Halloween in this episode? Because for some reason, I believe in the series premiere, Clary was doing auditions or interviews for an arts program. So I'm assuming that's sometime before school actually starts. So that's before September, maybe even back in June, whatever, right? I mean, that would be a lot better if it's been like maybe 6 months since everything that's happened to her since her 18th birthday. But then like on the other hand, if that took place like around September, then I can't believe that all of the episodes of Shadowhunters was in the span of 2 months. Like that's not possible, right? So I'm just wondering, or in the books on the show, did it ever state what date Clary's birthday was supposed to be? I mean, that would definitely help figure out how long it's been calendar-wise for our characters. So there's that as well. So let's move on to predictions very quickly. Based off the promo for 319, it looks like Clary convinced Jonathan of Jace's love and loyalty towards her and why they should bring him in. We do see the three of them fighting in a club. It might look like the Pandemonium Club we saw in the series premiere. I couldn't tell if it was Jace and Jonathan fighting each other or fighting other people. Also, we see Maya kissing Jordan. We also see Jordan seeing the Heavenly Fire serum with a voiceover about him maybe offering it to Maya, about like trying to get their former life back. So there's that. And then we also see Magnus struggling with his breakup with Alec to the point of him thinking of erasing all memories of Alec from his mind, which is just heartbreaking to think about. But the synopsis for the episode reads: to try and save Clary from Jonathan, Jace goes undercover. Back at the Institute, Isabel, Simon, Luke race to find a way to finally destroy Clary's bond with Jonathan. With time running out, can Isabel create the solution before Jace's cover is blown? A race against the clock type of scenario. That'll be interesting. Now, by the time I watched the episode, they did release 2 sneak peeks for it. So the first sneak peek has Luke, Isabel, and Simon. In this one, we see Luke returning to the Institute with tools from his sister Cleophas to help them create a new sword, Glorious. They find out that they need angel blood as a piece of the creation process. They're going to do Jace's blood because he has Ethereal's blood in him, but then because Jace isn't there, they're going to go with Simon because he still has Jace's blood in his system, because it's what Jace's blood was needed to create Simon into a daylighter. A little confusing, but there's that. The second storyline deals with the second clip shows Jace approaching Alec about his plans to go after Clary. And they bring up the Sealy communication rings. They put them on and they establish it between the two of them. And then also Jace brings up Alec's plans to propose to Magnus, only to find out that he broke up with him instead. And Jace is trying to push for answers because he feels that something is wrong, that something's not right from Alec because of the parapetite bond. So he tries to... I really want him to use the ring to telepathically communicate to Jace what actually is going on, that he made a deal with Asmodeus, but I don't know if that would count as him breaking their deal and have everything fall apart. So there's that, but that's pretty much it, guys. What'd you guys think of the 2 episodes? What'd you guys like about it? What do you think will happen next? Let me know in the comments down below. Love to hear your own thoughts, theories, and predictions about all that good stuff. Also, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to my channel, check out my other videos if you haven't done so already. If you want, check out my Tumblr page. The link for that is down below. I read blog promos, web clips, quotes, shifts, synopses, news, all that good stuff. All file in one place. Go check that out. I am behind, but I hope to catch up very soon. My WordPress account link is down below. Everything I post online is connected to WordPress, a little more organized, a little more detailed, but still a work in progress as well. Otherwise, guys, that is pretty much it. If you can believe it, there is only 2 episodes left before we get the 2-hour series finale. So it just keeps building and building. And with everything that's happening in these episodes, it's like, I guess I'm going to have to wait to find out what cliffhanger they were going to put us through if the show had gotten renewed. But yeah, we'll just have to wait and see about that. But anyways, thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you so much for your patience and watching straight through this. I hope you come back and see what they say about the next 2 episodes. But until then, guys, this is Mel. Wish you all a great day, great week, wherever you are. Bye for now.